Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made for the February A Punched Out Thursday to Die For. I'm using a sketch from Paper Issues by Jenessa Franco. As soon as I saw it, I thought it kind of looked like my style, and since I'm a little rusty on scrapbooking, I thought it would be best to use a sketch to help kind of jumpstart my creative process. So I chose a Pinkfresh studio collection called Flower Market. I thought that that collection went along really nicely with all the florals in the sketch. And then I picked out a number of different dies that I had in my stash that I thought went along with the elements in the sketch. So I cut out a picture frame, and that's an unbranded die. I got that at a flea market. And then I used a Creative Arts die. It's a banner die that's stitched around the edge to make a banner. I also cut out a tag using a Hero Arts Infinity die. And I also cut out a whole bunch of leaves using a Tessler Crafts Ellentina die. The photo that I'm using is of my daughter Julia. This was a picture that was taken right before she and her best friend and their dates went to their prom. It was taken at her friend's house. And I, of course, have a number of pictures of her with her date, but I think that this is such a nice picture because she spent so many years and had so many good times with her friend Kathleen. And one thing that I think is so nice about Julia, of course, I'm her mother, but I think it's so nice how she has a number of friends and she's closer to some at sometimes than others, but her friends always seem to cycle back into her life. She seems to keep the same friends for years, and just recently she was telling me how she saw one of her friends that she had lost touch with at a party and they had a really good time together. So I think that's a really nice trait, and I'm happy for her that she has a nice group of girls that she's friends with. They're not girls anymore, they're women at this point, but it's hard for me to think of it that way. So I wanted to add another piece of paper behind the frame because I saw that same effect in the sketch. So I cut out another frame in yellow, a yellow pattern paper that I used for some of the other elements on the page. And then I slightly offset the yellow frame and attached it behind the green frame. So you can see that I'm following the sketch very carefully. I have my banner and my tag to the right of my photo. And then I'm also going to include a punched out strip underneath the banner. I just felt like I needed a little something more down there. You don't see too much of it in the final layout, but I still think that you see enough of it to make it worth putting there. To attach the elements together, I put some adhesive on the back of a piece of cardstock and layered it on top. Sometimes I find that's a little bit easier than trying to attach all the separate pieces together. And now I'm attaching that punched out piece to the bottom of the banner. It was very long. I wasn't sure how long to make it, so I cut it back when I knew how it looked with the other elements. Earlier in the video, you probably saw that I inked the edges of all of these elements with some Distress Oxides. For the green pieces, I used Peel Paint. I used Stormy Sky for the blue pieces and Fossilized Amber for the ones that were yellow. I was thinking about making a mixed media background, but then I decided that I would instead use this really pretty piece of paper as my background. It has some very subtle flowers, and I think that it adds some interest, but it doesn't overpower the other colors that are on the page. And then I used the die cut pack that had just lots and lots of flowers, and I began building my clusters. And once again, you could see that I am following the sketch very closely. Before I chose this collection, I didn't really look at the die cuts too carefully. I saw they were floral and I thought, well, they'll be perfect. But once I started working with them, I realized they were a little bit smaller in scale than the leaves that I cut out. So I wasn't really sure if I was going to use any of those leaves, which wouldn't be a big deal because I will definitely get use out of leaves like this on a future layout. But I kind of wanted to include them. So I was not sure at this time what I was going to do. And then when I started adding them in, I decided that I really liked the way that they looked. I think they helped to anchor the clusters, so I did end up including them in the layout. I found that I had another pack of Pinkfresh Studio floral ephemera, and there were some gold vellum pieces in that pack. So I picked those pieces out and I decided to include one of those pieces in each of the 3 clusters. And I wasn't really expecting to like these gold branches as much as I did. I thought that the gold looked really pretty with the rest of the elements in the collection. So now I am happy with the way that I have everything laid out on the layout, and I'm starting to attach those ephemera pieces down. If you've been following my channel for a while, you may have noticed that I haven't been putting as many videos as I used to up on my channel, and that's a temporary situation. And although I'm not sure when I'm going to be back in full swing, I did get a lot of things done that I needed to get done, and one of them was the floor of my scrapbooking room. A while back, I had dropped a blue alcohol ink on the hardwood floor, and that is not a good thing. The alcohol ink would not come up. The only thing that I could use to get it up off the floor was alcohol, and even then it didn't all come up. But what that did was it removed the finish from the floor, so the wood was bare, and then the wood got really dirty, and it just had to be refinished. Luckily, they didn't have to do the whole floor. They were able to just do part of it. But that was one of the many things that had to be redone in the house. So we're still working on those repairs, but I'm hoping to be back in full swing by next month. Things are taking a little bit longer than I had expected, but at this point there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to finish things up fairly soon. This particular die cut was very large, so I thought that I could cut it into 2 pieces and then put some in one part of the cluster and then some in another part, and I like the way that ended up working out. I only had these 3 gold branches, and if you look, each of them is a little bit different. At first, I didn't think that was going to be enough, but I think it was just the right amount of gold on the background. When I started attaching the clusters down, I took all the leaves off of the layout, and so now that I have everything attached down, I'm going to start returning them to the clusters. I had cut out a lot of leaves because generally when I use leaves and stems and branches on my layouts, I use a lot of them. But for this layout, I use them a little bit more sparingly than usual because they're larger, especially in comparison to the flowers, as I had mentioned. So I just wanted to include a couple of them in each of the clusters. I really like this set of dies to make leaves. You can cut out a single leaf or 2 leaves on a branch or 3, and they have different size leaves. And I think that this is a very versatile set of dies, and I had accidentally filed it in with the wrong dies, so I couldn't find it for a while, and then I was going through my dies and I found them, and I was really happy because, like I said, I think that they are a really nice set. So I picked one of the puffy stickers from this collection. It said smile, so I thought that would be a nice title, and then I picked out a sentiment that says you are sunshine. So I thought that those 2 would look nice together on the banner. And then I also added a couple more flowers on top of the photo. I wanted to fill in an open spot over the photo. I also added a little chipboard pink flower underneath the sentiment. And even though it wasn't in the sketch, I just had to add a little tiny cluster in the upper right-hand corner. I just felt like something needed to go there. And I kept the cluster rather small. I used some of the floral ephemera pieces, and I also used 2 of the leaves that I had die cut out earlier. You can see that I had the cluster a little bit more to the left, but I decided to slide it over to the right a little bit more. And I used the tag die to cut out a piece to go over the top of the tag, and I cut it out in yellow so that there would be little bits of yellow throughout the layout. And then I felt that that space to the right of the flowers at the top looked a little bare, so I was looking for something to put there, but I decided to put a flower to the right-hand side of the tag. And then I added a single flower to the right-hand side of the sentiment that's on the banner. And I knew I wanted to add something at the top, so I finally found some tiny pink flowers and I added those up at the top. And then I used my scissors to trim off the embellishments that were hanging over the edge. And I trimmed off a little leaf from the top, and I thought that that would look nice on the right-hand side of the cluster, so I attached that little tiny leaf down. So it's the next morning, and this is where I always look with fresh eyes on my layout, and inevitably I rearrange something. In this case, I decided that that title just wasn't visible enough. That yellow matched in too much with the yellow on the banner, and it also wasn't super visible on its own either. So I decided that I was going to pick out a different title. I didn't know what at this time. And then I didn't really like the way I had some of the flowers and branches on the cluster to the right of the photo, so I rearranged those. Another thing that stuck out to me was that the banner needed a little bit more emphasis, so I decided I was going to put a white border all around it. So luckily, it wasn't too hard to peel up just enough that I could stick a piece of white cardstock behind it and then kind of figure out what size I needed to cut it to make a mat all the way around the yellow banner. I added a number of pencil lines to this piece of cardstock. So what I ended up doing was flipping the piece of cardstock over so you wouldn't be able to see those. Luckily, I did get the center kind of in the center so that it did work out when I flipped the banner over. So I was really happy with that. I think that it made that element look a little bit more substantial without doing anything crazy to the layout. I added some adhesive and then I tucked that behind my banner. I knew I had to pick out a new title. Sometimes the title to a layout is extremely important to me. It all depends on the layout. I have scrapbooked a number of photos from this day, so it's not like the title is going to clue me in as to what's happening in the picture. I just wanted to have a title though, so I had to go back to some of my other Pinkfresh Studio collections. I tried to find something that had a title that would work, but it was really funny. I kept finding titles and they were all yellow. Any of the ones that I found that I thought would match these colors. But before I found the title that I wanted, I decided I wanted to add a bow to the top of the tag. These bows are from Paper Studio. They're supposed to be self-adhesive, but there was no adhesive or there was no stickiness on the back of the bow. So that's okay. I just used a little bit of ATG adhesive. And then I found that I had this title that said love. When I picked it out, I thought it was pink, but then later on I realized it was lavender. But I still think that it matches in with the colors that are in this layout. I recently rediscovered a box of butterflies I had in my scrapbooking room, and I really never think to look in there. So I decided I wanted to add some butterflies. I had these beautiful gold Martha Stewart butterflies, and I added them in a few different places on the layout. And I later realized that their wings are double, so I went back in and I folded up the first layer so that they would be a little bit more dimensional. And then I found I had these really pretty pearls that are the same color as the title, so I thought that's perfect. I can add that color in a few more places on the layout. And that's the last touch. When I'm all done with the layout and taking pictures, I do add another pearl to the bow, but I didn't capture that in these pictures. Sometimes I continue working on the layout even after the video is done. So I wanted to say thank you very, very much for coming back to my channel and watching this video. I really appreciate it. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this video. I really had a good time making this layout. I love the Paper Issues sketch. They have a lot of really great sketches. If you like sketches, I would check out their Facebook group. Please don't forget to check out the other Punched Out Thursday to Die For videos. The links to the channels are in the description box. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.